the birthplace of the Bohemian Revolution, from Cowork 591 Studios. This is the Steve Brown Arts Center Podcast Network with co-host Dale Rueber and producer Blake Tempus. I am Jim Gillespie, and this is the Jesup News for July 17th, 2023. The summer goes fast.
It
Mr.
certainly
Rueber.
does, yeah. It's almost time for school to start.
It is.
My son told me that Target's getting in all kinds of school supplies now. So.
That always used to make my stomach upset.
Yeah, it
when
did.
I'd
Yeah,
see
me
that.
too.
On today's podcast,
You know what used to get me is I hear the crickets in the basement,
yeah.
and I know it was time for school to start. It'd be towards the end of August. It used to give me that terrible feeling. Okay, go ahead. Not that I didn't love going to school, of course.
We talked today to Jesup resident Mike Farrell. We talk about winners and losers, Dale and I. We talk about Farmers Day and get the update on how that went. I talk about turning 50 or when I turned 50. Although
So that wasn't recently, was it?
it wasn't. It's been a couple years.
Okay, all right.
Okay. I talk about the 10th segment of Mandino's book on how to be successful. We look at the events inside the Steve Brown Arts Center. We give you the top stories in Jesup, and we discuss service and art. I know Mike will have a lot to talk about service, and Dale has something special for you. As I look over my shoulder there, I see something pretty neat.
You do? Okay, well, actually, it's a makeup of the last time I was here. Was something I talked about. I have to give more information. So,
All right. The Steve Brown Arts Center is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that has a vision for artists, young and old alike, to have the opportunity to better themselves while helping to build the skills of those around them. It will be offering community programming starting in Jesup, Iowa, before expanding to neighboring communities. Programming will include a community speaker series that will showcase existing creatives who reside within the community, as well as a pop-up series that will spotlight and partner with local businesses to provide opportunities for community engagement. The long-range vision is to house a rural artist residency program for professional and emerging artists in all areas of the arts and humanities. Artists will be offered accommodations and studio space in exchange for a contribution of labor and maintenance of the buildings and grounds. Dale, we were talking before the show, our numbers, thanks to some of the guests like Jacob McMartin and Rachel Dahl and the like, our numbers have been up, and we need to thank those guests. 2% of our listening audience is in the United Kingdom, believe it or not.
all right, we're traveling over the ocean. Okay.
I had a call from a person I worked with for a number of years, and they are listening. I want to do a shout out to Jeff and thank him for listening. Our Spotify numbers are up to 68 members.
Okay.
And there are people that don't not only listen on Spotify but listen on Apple and other places where they can find the podcast.
Okay. Well, I'll say word to Eric Frank. He's my son's brother-in-law, and I saw him at one of the baseball games where my grandson was playing, and he said he's been listening to them, and so I want to thank him for doing that. So Eric Frank of Lake City, Iowa,
There you go.
out west.
Welcome, Eric. Glad you're listening. So the first thing on the show today is the 10th Step to Success, and Mandino is the greatest salesman in the world. The Greatest Salesman in the World is a book that I would recommend that you read. You can read it in a weekend if you get a chance. And the 10th Step to Success is to ask God for strength, not ask God for things. Mandino talks about, he doesn't necessarily talk a lot about God, but he talks about every living creature, if they're painted into a corner, if they are fighting for something, they call out to their God. They call for strength. And so as I read this, the advice that Mandino recommends, and when after I've read this book multiple times, when I pray, Dale, I don't pray for items. I don't pray for something for me. I pray for the strength to handle what is presented to me.
Okay, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, you know, and that is probably helped me as much as anything. That part of the book, I didn't teach that in class for obvious reasons, public school and religious things. I did not present the 10 steps to success.
You have to be careful with
Yeah,
that.
but I did present the first 9, but I was like Mandino's 10th step to success in his book, The Greatest Salesman in the World.
There's a very neat, in the Bulletin Journal, there's an article written by a pastor every night, and I don't know if it's every week but the one was talking, and now I can't think, it was David or Solomon. He was talking, the pastor was writing about how when he was given a chance to ask for anything he wanted, he asked for wisdom rather than diamonds, gold, or castles to be the king or whatever. He asked for wisdom, and I wish I'd have kept the article because I thought that the Minister in Independence did a real nice job of writing about that and making it seem like that was the way a person should go, and so.
I like that.
So, and that's kind of what you're doing too, is you're asking for the strength to be able to handle the things that come each day.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So next on the list we have winners and losers, Dale. So
Go first. Okay.
First,
My winner is the Methodist Church float. And I say those people because I'm one of those people, but I'm also on the Farmers Day boards. I have to stay in the middle, kind of. But they've been working on floats for years and years and years, and they keep getting beat up by the Presbyterians down the street. And so this year, I know they put a lot of work into it. And Mary Steuben is a former art teacher. She's big in the arts, and so she gave them a lot of help and had a lot of good ideas. And so they didn't win the church float first prize, but they won the grand prize, which is even better, see?
Yes.
And so they're very tickled that all of their work paid off for them. And so I'm glad to see, after many, many years of being second and even third to the Presbyterians and somebody else, they finally won a prize. They won the grand prize, and so they're very, very happy.
I was over to Steuben's a couple of times. Mary's involved in our Arts in the Park these 2 months of the summer, and she was working on the float both times I was over there.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to hear that she had success. I know Mary worked, I'm sure other people worked real hard on the float as well.
Yeah. I know Bill and Mary May were involved with it a lot, and Mary Steuben, and I'm sure there were others, but I stay out of it because I try to remain neutral, see. So.
That's a good way to be.
Yeah.
So my winner is Alan Wright and the children he transported on his bus for 65 years.
Okay.
It is a remarkable thing. Alan is ageless. He looks just like the Alan that I met 40 years ago when I came to Jesup.
Yeah.
And there, I saw a wonderful picture of some of the students that Alan transported on his bus.
There are 4 generations of some families.
4 generations. Yep. And I know that some of his family and people are trying to get Alan in the Guinness Book of World Records. They're working at that. But
I understand the paperwork for that is staggering, the amount of work that has to be done to get them to accept your record. It's not easy. But they're working on it.
Oh, wonderful. And who do you have for your loser this week?
Well, my losers are, I hate to get into this topic again, but it's the women of Iowa. I think with this legislation that was passed this week in the State House, and it's the abortion thing, and it's going to involve another long court battle. It probably will go all the way to the Supreme Court and this sort of thing. And the thing that gets me is that the polls that take 60 to 70% of people in Iowa are not in favor of this strict of a law, and 70% of the women are not in favor of this strict law. And I always thought, you got to take all the girls from 12 to 100 and let them vote about different abortion laws and keep the old men out of it, because the one old guy, and they showed him on the national news today, this legislator, he said, yes, as well, if they don't want to have babies, they shouldn't have sex. And I said, well, okay, that's the whole advertising world is bent on selling sex to people. I mean, that's how they sell everything from cars to Coca-Cola. And so I don't think that was a very good idea, but that's what made the national news. And so, but anyway, I feel bad for the women who are being put at risk, I think, in many, many ways. And so that's my loser, is that law that they passed on Tuesday that's going to be signed on Friday.
And this isn't far from yours. My loser is our country's lack of being able to accept other people's discourse. And we don't seem to have the ability anymore to listen to people's arguments and accept those arguments. We want to argue back and yell over top of people.
And you can't be convinced. And no one can say, okay, look at the evidence here, and then the other guy says, oh yeah, I see that you're right. Well, that never happens. You know, it doesn't matter how much evidence you have, they never agree that they're wrong. And I know from experience that that's the worst feeling in the world, that feeling you get in the pit of your stomach when you realize in the middle of an argument that you are wrong and the other guy is right. And you sometimes say, okay, I'm with you, buddy. You know, you've convinced me, but I know I've had those feelings many times where you right in the middle of it, you think, oh, yeah, they're right. You know, I'm on the wrong side of this.
So. I have a great story with this. During COVID, I went to Taco John over in Waterloo. Mm-hmm. And because of COVID, they removed their garbage cans outside Taco John. Mm-hmm. And I ate my tacos in my vehicle and looked for garbage outside of Taco John's, and there was no garbage. Mm-hmm. Well, there was a hotel close by with a garbage can. And so I took my garbage and I walked my garbage over there and stuffed it in that garbage barrel. And as I was walking away, the manager came out and said, that's not our garbage. You just threw your garbage in our garbage barrel. Why'd you do that? Okay. And I turned to him and I said, you're right. And about knocked him down because he was so right.
Yeah.
You know, they say, and I'm not calling myself a genius, please don't take this wrong, far from it. But they say a person that has the ability to change their mind is maybe one of the smartest people in the world.
Yeah. Why can't we elect any of them?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I always have great respect for Don Quackenbush, and I've learned we were in several church meetings over the last 40-some years. And I've learned to listen to her first, because every time I jump right in with my rock solid opinion, and she said, yes, but, and then I said, oh yeah, that sounds a lot better than what I said. So I've learned just to let her talk first before I say anything. So, but I have great respect for her and her opinion. She really thinks things through. So
cool. All right. So Dale has an update on one of the things he talked about a couple of weeks ago.
Okay, well, I talked about the Declaration of Independence and Jefferson writing this 138-word paragraph about slavery, and how in the editing process, as it went through all the delegates, all of that, except for a few words, was taken out. And so I was talking about how Jefferson, as a slave owner, was writing about the evils of slavery and this sort of thing. Well, it's interesting how these things come up, but that came out on July the 3rd. Well, July the 3rd, there's an article in the Courier, an editorial written by a man, Mr. Holton, who was a professor of history at the University of South Carolina. And he talked about that paragraph, and I was completely out of whack with it. And so I'm going to read a lot of it to you. It won't take too long, but just to make sure I get it right. American independence is due in part to African Americans. Like the U.S. Constitution, the final version of the Declaration never uses the word slave, but African Americans loomed large in the first draft written by Thomas Jefferson. In that early draft, Jefferson's single biggest grievance was that the mother country had first foisted enslaved Africans on white Americans and then attempted to incite them against their patriot owners. In an objection to which he gave 168 words, 3 times as many as any other complaint, Jefferson said King George III had encouraged enslaved Americans to purchase that liberty of which he has deprived them by murdering the people upon whom he also obtruded them. And what he's saying is that the English brought slaves to North America, and so as this revolt was starting, King George was telling the slaves, if you rise up and get across the lines and join our army to help us kill the patriots, then we will give you freedom when this war is over. Well, the Southern slave owners, their worst fear was that the slaves would revolt because there were more slaves than there were white people. And so that was one of their worst fears. And the king, and we say the king, it's really the government of England, is encouraging the African Americans, the slaves, to revolt and murder the white Southerners. So they were putting a dagger to the throats of the patriots through the hands of the slaves. Britain really had forged an informal alliance with African Americans, but it was the slaves who initiated it. In November 1774, James Madison became the first white American to report that slaves were plotting to take advantage of divisions between the colonies and the mother country to rebel and obtain their own freedom. Initially, the British turned down African Americans' offer to fight for their king, but the slaves kept coming, and on November 15, 1775, Lord Dunmore, the last British governor of Virginia, finally published an Emancipation Proclamation. It freed all rebel or patriot-owned slaves who could reach his lines and would fight to suppress the Patriot Rebellion. And so the Second Continental Congress was talking about Dunmore and other British officials when it claimed in the final draft of the Declaration that George III had excited domestic insurrection amongst us. And they were talking about the slaves, though they never used the word slaves. That brief euphemism was all that remained of Jefferson's 168-word diatribe against the British for sending Africans to America and then inciting them to kill their owners. But no one missed its meaning. And so that caused me to look up other slave rebellions. And probably the one we're most familiar with is in ancient Rome, the Spartacus rebellion, where ended up with a slave army of 120,000 people, and who rose up, and they had to take 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 Roman legions to subdue them after they broke into factions when they got to arguing.
I believe that war was 2 years long.
It was quite a long time. It was 73 BC. Mm-hmm. And out of 120,000, there were 6,000. They say, like in the movie, Kirk Douglas is crucified at the end, but they say in reality he was killed during the last battle. But that 6,000 survivors were crucified. They were on those crosses all up and down that road as a warning against slaves. But the Romans, like all slave-owning people, were scared to death. We had in America in 1831, the Nat Turner Rebellion, where he and his followers, and Nat Turner's a very smart man, he and his followers ended up killing the people that owned them and then started marching down the road and acquiring more help as they went along. And the hysteria, huge mobs of white people came and started grabbing black slaves and killing them. And so more than 200 slaves were killed, whether they were part of the rebellion or not, because the hysteria swept through Virginia. And one of the things that happened because of that is that laws in many of the southern states were passed making it illegal to teach slaves how to read and write, because that way they could not communicate with slaves in other colonies and this sort of thing and start grouping things together. And so that's where that came from. There was one called the Zanzi Rebellion, which is in Africa. East Africans were captured by people, Arab-speaking people, and turned into slaves in Africa. And so there was a rebellion there in 869 AD. So it's not just a white against black problem, but it's just people in general enslaving other people. And then in Haiti, this was in 1791, the slaves rebelled, and they fought so hard that France finally, which owned Haiti at that time, outlawed slavery in Haiti. So they were the first ones to really get something done because of their rebellion. And
was the leader Toussaint Louverture?
That sounds right, yeah. Yes. I can't say those French words, so I just eliminate them from my report. So anyway, the Declaration of Independence spoke a lot about slavery, but mainly and it was all wiped out, of course, but the main problem they had was that the English government had allowed slaves to be sent to the colonies, and now that same government was trying to incite those slaves to rebel and kill the white people that they were sold to. And so that's what got them all excited in the Declaration. So I just wanted to make that. That was interesting how I talked about that, and then in a day or so, there was this article that said, oh, here's much more information than I had. So that's what makes America great is a newspaper.
Let me add to this. I heard a report on this shortly after the 4th of July. I believe the first draft of this came out in May of 1776, the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah, because they would have needed more than one day,
Right.
to go through it. Yeah. So, and I don't have the dates in my head now, but it was a process.
Yeah.
Like always, and actually, the date could have been July 3rd,
Mm-hmm.
but they picked July 4th for some reason or another, and it was weeks after that before everybody signed it, and so, and I still don't know how they printed the darn thing.
No.
Yeah. So, but
All right. Well, thank you, Dale.
no, it's all right.
This is the Steve Brown Arts Center Podcast Network, and we're at Cowork 591 Studios. The next segment is from a writing I did Wednesday, September 1st, 2010. So this is a little older. It's called The Captain Turns 50. It's on my blog, My Life in the Amish Air Force. It was the first year that I blogged.
Okay.
I will read this to you verbatim. These are my words. Wow, I turned 50 this year. For those of you that do not know when my birthday is, it is February 30th. So make sure when you send the cards out, send them February 30th,
Okay.
please. Drop me a card that day if you would. Anyhow, I was feeling a little sorry for myself when I remembered a book I had read where a guy also turned 50, and he had listed 50 things he did. I think that was from a book written by Jimmy Buffett.
Okay.
Okay, they are not as glamorous as Jimmy's, but for a guy that grew up in a small town in Iowa, I'm very proud of them. And I do not have anyone posting on my blog or have anyone postings on my blogs. Jump in. What are some things that you would put? So, like, if you get a chance, write down I have 25 today. I'd like to see you email me your top 10 or text me your top 10. So, like Andrea in Kansas, send us your top 10, or Jason in Cedar Falls, send us your top 10. We'd like to see these. Here are mine. Many of you were with me on some of these adventures, so enjoy this. I've eaten watermelon and fried chicken in the hills of West Virginia. I've met the Speaker of the House in Dublin. I coached the Ivorian national women's basketball team in the Ivory Coast. I've been to Lenin's tomb in Moscow. I've been to the Kremlin in Moscow. I was one of the assistants on the Irish national basketball team in Malta. I was lost in the coffee fields of Costa Rica. I've been to the National Park in Belize. The National Park of Belize is in the Caribbean, by the way. I was in El Salvador during the Civil War. I was in Guatemala during a national strike. I've been to the Eiffel Tower in Paris. I've seen a Nazi death camp in Belgium. I was at the cemetery in Clonmacnoise outside of Athlone, Ireland. I saw Barack Obama in Cedar Falls. I've been to Gorbachev's house with Nick Donnelly in Moscow. I've watched Lou Brock steal second in St. Louis. I watched Rod Carew chase 400 in the Twin Cities. I saw Thurman Munson the week before he was killed he wasn't in Minneapolis. He wasn't killed in Minneapolis. I believe his plane crashed in New York City or in Newark, one of those airports there. I've been to the Grand Ole Opry in Nashville, Tennessee. I've walked in the pines in the Rocky Mountains. I was offered a job on the Navajo Nation in New Mexico. I flew with Billy Tubbs from Oklahoma City. I saw the national basketball champion in the Iowa Field House. I was robbed in Nicaragua. And I saw President Reagan in Cedar Rapids. So those are 25 things that I was fortunate enough to do in the first 50 years of my life.
I remember when you made the trip to Costa Rica. I don't know. I remember talking with you about that before you went, and so.
Yeah, that was back in 90.
Was that 90? I knew it was a long time ago.
89, actually.
Okay, and stomach problems.
I did. I tell you, if
That's
you
what I remember.
if you
I had stomach problems in Costa Rica. So
but if you want to lose weight, get a parasite.
yeah,
It works well.
yeah. Good advice.
Yeah. So this is the Steve Brown Art Center Podcast Network, and we're at Cowork 591 Studios. This week at Cowork 591, Franny's Street Eats are here Monday from 11 to 2. That's today, as this comes out on Monday.
Do you
Tomorrow,
remember the cartoon in the Playboy magazine was a Fanny something? It was always in the back, but it was very humorous. Okay, never mind.
All right.
But I always get Fanny and Franny mixed up.
Franny. Okay. Wile E. Coyote Grill is here Tuesday from 11 to 6. And the Bowls of Love are here from 11 until 1:30 on Wednesday. So stop by Cowork 591 Studios. Also come in and talk to Kelly about getting a membership here if you can, please. This is the Steve Brown Art Center Podcast Network. We're here at Cowork 591 Studios, and our guest this week is Boston native Mike Farrell. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you.
Mike, how long have you and your family been here in Jesup?
I've been coming to Jesup. Met my wife in 2000. I've been coming to Jesup twice a year since then, or right around that area. And in 2017, we bought a house out almost in the edge of Jesup in 2017, November. And we were trying to have my son graduate from 8th grade so he would start fresh in high school. So we moved here the 4th of July of 2018.
Okay. And tell us about your family, sort of do a shout out to the family here. How big is it?
So I have 4 children. My wife and I, Barbara, Kester. We had 2 boys, and my prior marriage, I had 2 girls. I have a daughter who is 29. She lives in Portland, Maine. She's a biochemist, and she works developing test materials for an animal. So if you would have like a Lyme disease in a dog, she works on develop test materials for that. I have a second daughter who's 27. She lives in Buffalo. Just found out this morning she got engaged by text message. Right?
Yes.
Got the picture of the finger with a rock on it and said, "Guess what, Dad?"
Yeah.
I was like, "Okay." So she is an occupational therapist. I have a son with my wife Barbara, who is his name is Ian. Many people here in town know who Ian is. He's kind of hard not to know. He's a sophomore now down at the University of Iowa. He would like to be a mathematician. And then I have another son by the name of AJ. And AJ is a basement engineer. He works on his thumbs a lot with remote controls. So that is the family. My beautiful and intelligent wife, Barbara, like I said, former Kester. Family pretty well known in town. We got married in 2003 and lived in Maine for a little while and moved out here, like I said, in 18.
Okay. We met 2 years ago when at your pizza business at Farmers Day, and we re-met here again this year at Farmers Day, and I had thought about, it'd be great to get you on StoryCorps, and of course the StoryCorps interview was lost because of my error. But I thought, well, we can get him on a better interview this time. So, but the thing that gives me so much respect for you, Mike, is you're involved with service you were in the military. You're involved with your church. One of the things you're doing with the pizza is with a priest in Africa, and that's one of the things I want to talk to you about. But I guess let's start with your military service. Tell us about your military service.
So, as we talked on Friday, I think it was, or Saturday, I was I was a troubled youth from Boston, and I think we talked about this as well. I find that young minds are going to be active, right? And if they don't have something constructive to be active with, they're going to be destructive. And in Boston, you can get destructive in a hurry. So I was, I think I was around 15, 16 years old, and I got in trouble with the law, and I went through the court system and realized that was probably not a good career choice. And well, not only getting involved with the law, I dropped out of high school. And when I dropped out of high school, I really kind of thought about what's next. You know, where am I going to go? What am I going to do? I did have a major influence in my life. Let me back up a little bit. My dad was not in my life at all. I had a stepdad who was present but was not involved with me as well. So thus the trouble with the law. When I got in trouble with the law, I met up with a very, very strict former Marine probation officer who let me know behind closed doors that there was a different way of life and I was going to start leading it. And so I had gone home and, talked to my mother, and we were watching TV one night. There was a 2020 special came on, and it was about this Army unit teaching El Salvadorian rebels about military procedures. And I kind of looked at my mother and I said, Mom, I think that's what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to go in the military. And she looked at me like I had three heads, and, why? I said, well, I don't really have a direction in life, and I think I'm going to need one. So actually went in and swore myself into the military on her birthday in October of 1982. I don't want to monopolize the conversation at all, but I went into the infamous 82nd Airborne Division, and I had no clue what I was signing up for. I just knew that they were on TV, and I wanted to be a part of it.
So did you get to go to El Salvador?
I've been to a lot of places with the military.
Yeah.
Some places, obviously, you can talk about, and some you can't.
Yeah.
I've been to Egypt. I've been to Italy. I've been to all parts of the United States. I've been to Panama. 11 countries I've been to.
Yeah.
It was a very, very interesting time for me. I went in as a kind of a bigoted youth in Boston, and the time that I grew up in, there was what was called forced busing.
Okay, I was going to ask about that. So
Yeah,
okay.
sure. In its early days of my life, when I was going to school, we had all white classes, and I went to Catholic school, so I was in a private school. But just down the bottom of the hill of where I lived was a school called Woodrow Wilson Junior High School, and it was all white. I lived in what we called the Irish Catholic stronghold of Dorchester, Massachusetts, which is not a suburb, but more of a kind of a pocket, shall we say, of Boston. And Boston was very divided. You had your Italians, you had your Irish, you had your black folks, you had your Lithuanian, your Eastern Europeans, and they were all different parts of Boston. And I want to say it was probably around 74. I think I was about 10 years old. A judge, I forget his last name, but anyways, he came up with a ruling that said that they were going to take kids from a black neighborhood and put them in white neighborhoods, and
Never
take
heard of that.
white kids and put them in black neighborhoods.
Yeah.
They're trying to desegregate the city. And it was very dangerous at the time. And so fast forward to going into the military, I was very disillusioned with race, shall we say. And I was bigoted, for sure. When I joined in 1982, I got to learn that, no matter who you were, we were all the same, right? We went in the military, they shaved your head, they took all your clothes away, they took everything that was a different color away, they took all of your independence away, shall we say, and they made you all be green.
Wait, yeah, light green and dark green. is what
There
they
you
told
go.
us, Yes.
Right. And that green color, you come to hate it and come to love it, but you realize that the guy next to you, no matter who he was, black, brown, yellow, whatever, he was going to be your brother. And it was a time for me to understand that. It was really confusing. So with that, I went into basic training in '82. Went to airborne school in January of '83, and no matter how South Georgia is, it still gets real cold, real wet, and it was miserable. Funny story I told to Jim on Friday was I had no idea what the 82nd Airborne was.
Okay, I can see this could be interesting then, yeah.
So I was in the middle of basic training and that Fort Benning, Georgia, and there's a Air Force base nearby. I forget the name of it. And we were doing whatever. We were pushing down daisies, and we were doing a lot of calisthenics. And I forget why we were doing so many that day, but we were in what they call the front leaning rest position. And the C-130s were going overhead. And I kind of looked up at that, and the drill sergeant said, "Gentlemen, you will be on one of those in 16 weeks. And I thought, where am I going? And I said that. And he more or less gave me a little shove from behind and told me that I would be going to a drop zone and jumping out of that plane.
So you'll be going down then.
I would be
Yes,
going down,
yes.
and much to my fear, I had never been in a plane. The only time I'd been in a plane was going to basic training. And lo and behold, I found out I was going to be jumping out of the plane. Went through airborne school. Had a little break, a couple weeks, and then I was assigned to division, 82nd Airborne in Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
You talked about, we talked about this on Saturday. How many jumps did you make total, Mike?
I made 77.
Remarkable.
Honestly, that's a lot.
That's a lot of jumps.
I think you jump back to Boston. The movie Good Will Hunting. Did you see that? Matt Damon and Ben Affleck.
Yes. I
Okay,
did.
and what do you think of that? As far as the time when the first at the beginning of where they're just running around Boston, getting in fights and everything. Do you think that's realistic for the time, or?
I think it's very realistic.
Okay.
I think that there's a lot of bravado, still is, right? You had your ethnic groups that were kind of together. They weren't gangs, so to speak, but you had your kind of streets or your corners or whatever.
Yeah.
And Boston has a lot of parks, so you would hang out at one park and then you would make mischief at another park.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, that was pretty common.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I just thought that was, I don't know, a very interesting movie, and how it portrayed Boston. With the kids and getting in trouble, but also then you had the people at MIT at the other end, kind of, and so, which is kind of interesting to me. And so, but I think it's a very good movie. So
Yeah. We always had a sport. No matter what season it was, there was a sport to be played, right? And there was never go into the basement and play pong or whatever. Yeah. We were, get outside, right? That's what the parents said, get outside and play. And so on my street alone, there were probably 25 to 30 kids that were my age, and there was probably 600 kids in 2 streets.
Yeah.
So, we always had our own hockey team, and we always had our own football team. We always had our own baseball team. Well, you would go and challenge another park's baseball team, and inevitably it would end up in some sort of a fight at the end, right? Goodwill Hunting is a pretty accurate
Okay.
portrayal.
Okay.
Boston, because of the busing and stuff, Boston was seen as a fairly racist city in the late 60s, early 70s, as late as when you moved. They still talk about it being racist. Would you say it is, or is that just a myth that carries over?
There is still, I would tell you, I think that there is still some racism. Okay, was it as bad as when I grew up? No. There would be some very colorful names, and they would be used frequently face to face, right? Thus the fighting and so on and so forth. I go back periodically because of my job, and my parents and my family still live out there, but I don't hear it, nor do I see it much. I'm sure it's in the shadows somewhere, but I don't hear it or see it like I did when I was growing up.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, let's swing a little bit and talk about Mickey D's. There, you were raising money for a priest in Ghana?
Ghana.
Ghana. Tell us about that a little bit.
So I think it's really important to give back. I've been a recipient of some give backs myself in my life, and the old pay it forward, so to speak. And I think it's important to have that attitude or that desire to give to my children. So back in the day, when I was back in Boston, I was 10, 11 years old, trying to stay out of trouble. Down on every corner, we talked about corners, but on every corner in Boston had either a tavern or a convenience store. Well, mine had a kind of like a mini strip mall before a strip mall. There was a pizza shop. There was we call it a packy, but a package store. There was a local pharmacy, and there was a place that was like the local newsstand. And so I would go down to the bottom of the corner and hang around the pizza shop. And so the Italian fellow who was running the shop, he kind of shoo me out of there here and there. And then finally I was like, a fine weed. And he decided to let me in and sweep the floors, and then I could bring in the boxes and whatever. And he showed me how to make pizza. I think I was about 13 or so. And so I was making pizza, and I moved on, went into the service, and I got out of the service, and I wanted to move to Maine. And we had always gone up there when I was a kid. And so I wanted to move to Maine, and what I did for a living at that time, I was told, you can't make a living up here in Maine doing that. So I thought about it, and I bought a pizza oven, and I renovated a building, and I started making pizza. And so when I got to Iowa, my sister-in-law, Jeanette Kester, she was involved with this Irish Fest. I had always brought Maine lobster out with me every time I came and made lobster rolls. And she was pretty insistent on me bringing lobster rolls to the middle of Iowa, which I thought was crazy. So I agreed one year to make lobster out here and pizza. I thought I'm not going to sell a lot of lobster rolls, so what else could I sell? Pizza. So I bought a pizza oven. And my son Ian, he is quite an interesting fella. He's a very big-hearted kid with a lot of desire to give back. And so I said to Ian, the money that we raise, we need to start giving this to a cause. And he kind of looked at me and he's like, why? Why would we go to work and give the money away?
Yeah.
And I said, well, sometimes people need things, and we need to do that. And so anyways, we started giving the money away. We've given money to veterans programs. We've given money to St. A's. We have donated it all around the community. And so there was a visiting priest from Ghana this year at St. A's. And Ian said to me, Dad, I think we want to give the money this year to the priest, because apparently he had a sermon in which he had talked about gardening or hoeing or whatever they were doing their land, and they didn't have a tractor. And so they were doing farming with a hoe in many, many, many acres. And he said, well, why don't we take our proceeds and give it to the priest? And I said, okay. Well, that's what we did. So we raised some money, and we're going to send it off to Ghana so they can have a tractor, or someday have a tractor.
That's neat.
Well, I had some of your pizza. I don't know. I don't think it was you, but someone brought a large one over to the pavilion to give to Alan Wright.
That's correct.
And he shared it with me and a couple other people, because it's a giant pizza. And I notice it has I don't want to say a flexible crust, but it's not a hard crust like some. Was that on purpose, or ours? That's just the way ours was, like a hamburger pizza.
So I asked Alan, because I think Alan's fabulous. He lives across the street from my mother-in-law.
Oh, okay.
And I've known Alan for a long time. And so I think what Alan does for Farmers Day is the ultimate give back. Last year we did the same thing when we were there. And I said, Alan, tell me what kind of pizza you like. And he said, well, I like a cheeseburger and something else. I couldn't remember what it was. And I said, oh, okay. Well, we'll be bringing one over to you. So Ian was going back and forth every couple of hours and saying, Alan, are you ready for the pizza? No.
He will never say, yeah, okay, go ahead.
So so we put that pizza through the oven, and it's a hand tossed pizza. It's not. We roll it out with a big metal pin, and we toss it. We stretch it out and hand toss it in the air, and then we put it on a screen and in an oven. And
no, it was very good.
Thank you.
Everybody, I think 3 or 4 of us ended up having a piece, and it was really very good. So
thank you,
Mike. Let's transform to your professions, your job, and you've got a couple jobs actually, at least. Tell us about those.
Okay, so I can bring you back to the day when I first got involved with my profession right now. And Alan, I told you I was involved with the police, right? So it was a group of 5 or 6 boys, and we all were doing some things that weren't correct. We'll leave it at that. And we all got arrested. All but 2 of us got arrested, and 2 of the boys didn't get arrested. So
the fastest runners.
Well, I was the fastest runner.
Okay.
But
They got you anyway.
they got me anyway.
All right.
That's right. So went to the police station. My mother came up. She got me and brought me home, and then we all had this meeting at the court. I was fortunate that my uncle was a Boston police detective. I think I told you this. Pretty much all of my family are police this and police that. Well, anyways, one of the boys that didn't get caught, his mother was very afraid because he was quite a studious type of kid and was going to go to college and what have you. So she approached my mother and said, hey, if Mike doesn't tell on my son, I won't say what his name was, but if he doesn't tell on my son, we'll get him a job sanding wood floors. My mother's like, well, you got a strong back and a weak mind, Michael. Yeah. You're going to go sand some floors. So off I went.
Yeah.
I sanded floors for some years, and I think it was from 13 to the day I went into the military. And then when I was down in North Carolina, in order for me to get home, it was quite a pricey little plane ticket, and you didn't get paid a lot in the military. I think my paycheck a month was like $680 and $100 or so for jump pay or something like that. It wasn't a lot of money, and plane ticket was $400 or $500. So in order for me to get home, I would have to sand floors, not only in North Carolina where I was stationed, but when I come home on the weekend. to see my girlfriend or whoever. And so I would sand floors. And then when I got out of the military, I decided I wanted to go to college. And then, well, I wasn't scholastically sound, so I didn't get into the college of my choice. And I started sanding floors because I needed to pay for my place and eat, right? So sanded floors for a little while and realized that I could make a heck of a lot more money sanding floors than I'd ever being something else.
Yeah.
So I sanded floors for a little while, and a company that manufactures some products came calling, put an ad in a paper, a trade magazine, and I responded to the ad and had to move to Maryland to take the job, which I did. I got promoted a couple of times, and then another company came calling, and I went to work for them. I've been with them now 20 years, and I am now a director of U.S. sales for this company. And I have many employees that work for me, and I generally go to Eastern Iowa Airport on Monday and come back on Thursday every week.
Yeah.
And I'm anywhere. I could be in Canada, I could be in Mexico, anywhere in the United States on any given day. I could go from New York to California in the same week. I'm all over the country.
Yeah. My first thought was guys on their hands and knees, with
Oh,
a
yeah.
brick or something, but I'm sure you have the sanding machines and this sort of thing that you use.
That's correct.
But you still got to get in the corners, though, don't you?
You do.
Yeah.
So we are the world's largest manufacturer of floor sanding equipment, and that's not the only thing that we do. We make anything that has to do with commercial cleaning, anything that has to do with a floor.
Okay.
We make chemicals, we make machines, we make deodorizers and all the such.
So it's not a very large business, then, I'm sure.
Yes, very, very large. I tend to say it is the biggest, smallest, biggest billion-dollar company you never heard of.
Yeah.
What is the name of that company?
We are a company, our company's name is Amano Pioneer Eclipse.
It wouldn't be like Al's Floors or something,
No.
Yeah, so.
That easy.
No.
No.
No,
Not that easy.
No.
I'm sorry, say the name again?
Amano Pioneer Eclipse.
Okay.
Okay.
I would not tell you that was about floors, then, would it?
No.
Yeah.
No, that's right. So, like I said, it's the biggest,
Yeah.
smallest company, billion-dollar company you've never heard
And
of.
where is that headquartered out of?
So, Amano is a Japanese holding company. And what, you're starting to see more and more of this, holding companies buying other interests. So Amano is a Japanese holding company, and they own not only Pioneer Eclipse or my company, American Sanders, but they own parking lots near airports. They own the gates that go up and down for the parking lots. They own a company that makes time clocks. They own a company that can test your body temperature if you walk through. Did you see the movie Total Recall?
Yeah.
That thing that Arnold Schwarzenegger walked through, we make those too. Like little see through your body, take your temperature, and they own a bunch of stuff all over the world. So it's a fascinating little
Yeah.
company.
Yeah.
And you can work for them living in Jesup. That's amazing, isn't
Of
it?
all places,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And what's really funny is when I'm flying, I know that I'm at my gate because it's all black and gold.
And so then you also sand floors on the weekends with your sons.
That is correct. So there's a rule in my house that you have to do two things in growing up in my house. You must play hockey, and you must sand floor. So my 29-year-old daughter, who is 5'0" and 105 pounds, sands and can install floors with the most experienced guys in the world. And all the way down to my son AJ, who is the basement engineer. He does it too, reluctantly, but they all do it.
Yeah.
How old is he?
AJ's 16.
16, okay.
So every weekend when we come home, not every weekend, but most weekends, when we come home, it's, oh, Dad. But I can proudly tell you that my kids are not afraid of hard work.
Yeah.
No, I had Ian in class.
yeah?
He doesn't fear hard work, and like you said earlier, he's a person that cares for other people. He has empathy for other people.
That's the thing I hear the older generation complain the most about is that kids today don't know how to work.
Oh,
And you hear that all the time. And so, again, I'm not around the kids today, but that's the complaint that I hear. So I don't know if it's true or not, but I know it's a different world than when we were growing up. And
Sure.
there was a lot of hard work to do.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Little side note, when we first got to Jesup, I was just fearful that my son would not be able to assimilate because he was the first born and he was going into ninth grade. And so one special talent that pretty much everybody that graduated with Ian last year knows is that Ian studies and rehearses numbers of pi. So he was walking by a classroom. I think he was in ninth grade. He was probably 3 weeks into school, and somebody might have heard or had heard that Ian did this kind of little thing about pi numbers. And they grabbed him. He was walking in the hallway. One of the teachers grabbed him into the class and said, "Hey, Ian, can you give our math class can you just give us, I don't know, as many numbers as you can on pi?" And he started to rattle off. And he went up to, I guess, 100 numbers, and the kids were kind of dumbfounded. Yeah. And that was kind of Ian's introduction to Jesup High School. And so I think he did 2,000 numbers last year.
Oh, my.
And his goal, I don't know if he'll ever get there, but his goal is 1 million. He's got a book. It's about as thick as a Webster's dictionary. And he recites whatever, I don't even know how many, but he did 2,000 last year.
I find that amazing. Yes.
Yep. Mike, from Boston to just obviously Boston presents a lot more options of things to do, and Jesup is pretty laid back and sheltered. What draws you to Jesup? What do you see as the highlights of Jesup?
So my job obviously brings me to Boston, New York, Washington, Philly, Detroit, Chicago, you name it. I've been there, Washington, D.C., whatever. I deal with hectic daily. I travel anywhere from 120 to 150 nights a year. I'm in a hotel room somewhere in the country. Prior to moving to Jesup, we lived in Maine in the woods. And I wanted a stable and a quiet family type atmosphere for my family. And because I'm gone so much, right? So I made the silly suggestion to my wife back in 2015 or 16. I said, "You can live anywhere in the country, wherever you want, dear." And she said, and I knew the answer, "I want to move to Jesup." And I said, "Oh, God." It has a lot of value, family values. I mean, I live on the outskirts, as I told you, just off of Indian Creek. It's very similar to Maine, upstate Maine. You wave to everybody. People are very friendly. It's a very safe environment, which is what was most important to me, not being home at night while I'm on the road. It made my wife happy, and there is something to happy wife, happy life, right? Yeah. And it was convenient to her. She goes to work over at Hawkeye Community College. It was kind of nice that we were right here in town near, just a nice little small town. I was always enamored with Farmers Day. I thought it was really funny. I have so many stories I can tell you about the differences between Jesup and Boston. But I remember one of my early visits to Jesup, my wife said to me, "I would really like you to come see the 4th of July fireworks with me." And I said, "Seriously, you do know where I'm from, right?" Yeah. So she brought me down to, I don't even know, the park, the soccer field, I guess, or something like that. And we watched a couple bottle rockets go up in the air and maybe a few Roman candles. And I said, "Whoa, this is exciting, dear." And then the following year, I took her to the Boston Common. We watched Toby Keith and the fireworks there, and it was earth-moving. It really was that loud. And we kind of joke about it now, but it is what is really attractive for me in Jesup is it is still it brings back memories of my youth. The old days where, you know, it was safer. It was a great place to live. Another thing, moving from a bigger place to a smaller place, I had a fear that my children, Ian and AJ, would not assimilate well. And one of the things about AJ is he was born with a birth defect. It's called Pierre-Robin syndrome. It's a combination of a cleft palate and your chin is born back here. So your tongue acts as a flapper and cuts off your airway.
Okay.
So AJ had to have an emergency tracheotomy 5 days into his life. And so he had what looked like a barrel, like you know, the St. Bernards with those barrels. He looked like he had a barrel on his neck. And so for the first couple of years of his life, our vocal cords grow naturally, and we can talk just fine. Well, AJ, his vocal cords did not grow, and so he has a mild speech impediment, and we all know how kids can be. Sure. And that was my fear. My fear was my son, who is a really smart kid, Ian, and sometimes is a little awkward, and AJ with his speech problem. I thought that they might be kind of cast out. And I can tell you, I could not be more pleased with Jesup High School, the teachers, the kids of this town. They treated my boys with respect and embraced them.
Oh, good. Well, Mike, we appreciate you coming in tonight. Thank you so much. Is there anything we didn't talk about that you'd like to talk about?
Not really. I'll leave you with one other story. Okay, and I always, my wife, I'm always picking on her. So we were dating when 9/11 happened, and
This is in Boston. You're out East Coast yet, or
my wife was in Denver.
okay?
I was working for a different company at the time, and I was in Boston. Actually, I was in Maine. I was going to be on my way to Boston, so planes hit the towers, whatever. They came down, and my wife had always wanted to go out and see the 9/11 site. So we did. We went out. We went to New York, and I brought her to the 9/11 site. And this is what is so genuine for me about Jesup, Iowa. We're walking around in New York, and my wife is just swinging her arms and saying hello to everybody, and her purse is swinging around. And I stopped and I said, "Dear, you need to hold on to your purse. You need to look at the ground, and you need not say hello to anybody." Why? I said, "It's not Jesup, Iowa." So it's a great town, really is. Lots of great people.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both for your time.
Yep.
This week's obituaries are sent to us by White's Funeral Home at 1315 Main Street in Jesup, Iowa. We have one obituary. It is Lester Norman Shares, 78, of Gilbertville, Iowa, died Saturday, July 8th, 2023 at Unity Point Allen Hospital in Waterloo, Iowa, after a courageous 8-year battle with cancer. He was born August 12, 1944 in Waterloo, the son of Joseph and Mary Welter Shares. He married Phyllis Jean Frost on November 12, 1966, at Immaculate Conception Catholic Church in Gilbertville. She preceded him in death in 1987. Les graduated from Don Bosco Catholic High School in 1962. Les retired in 1994 after 30 years with John Deere Tractor Works. Les was a previous commander of the American Legion Post 714 in Gilbertville and an active member for 56 years. He was the 2022 Grand Marshal for Gilbertville Days, an honor that made him smile for days. Not one to sit around, he spent many years helping others, whether it was as an auctioneer, working at the American Legion, renting tents, tables or chairs, or providing a trailer. He was a winter Texan where you might catch him dancing the night away or doing a Blues Brothers act. Always the life of a party. Les is survived by daughter Jody and her husband Josh Menke, 2 grandchildren Mason and Ray Lynn, all of Algonquin, Illinois. Longtime partner Margaret Ide and her children, brother Henry Shears of Washburn, sisters Marcy McCardle of Independence and Marie Hessness of Mason City, sisters-in-law Nancy Genevieve and Elaine Shears. He's preceded in death by his wife Phyllis, daughter Lori, 6 brothers Norman, Harry, Earl, Ronnie, Marvin, Elmer, sisters-in-law Karen and Lois, and brother-in-law Gene Hessness. Memorials may be directed to Immaculate Conception Church, Bosco School System, or St. Jude Hospital. White Funeral Home was in charge of arrangements. Dale, what do you have for library news this week?
The library is still there, and it's going strong. And if you want a book, you can get one there. The library, story time, remember, meets every Thursday at 10:30 a.m. They have songs, stories, and more. And remember, the more you get your kids involved with literature, the better you're going to be. Okay, the July spice is dill. Now, this is one we know, probably. Do you eat dill pickles?
Yes.
And your mother did she can pickles ever?
She did one year was a terrible failure, and that was the only year she did it.
Do you remember the Andy Griffith show?
Oh, that's a great episode.
Yeah, Aunt Bee was making pickles. They were so horrible, so they bought some, and
Yeah.
put them in there. Okay. They have a new Fontana critter at the library, and the red-eyed tree frog is gone, and we're going to welcome our July critter, but do they tell us what it is?
No.
No. Have you been in there to see it?
I haven't looked at it.
Okay. I guess I have not either. The Megaphone Blaster Party has already happened, but if you happen to see that in the park on Friday, the kids just loved that. It had this cannon just spitting out foam, tons and tons of foam, and there's a picture in the Bulletin Journal I see. Kids had a lot of fun with that foam, just all over the place, and so... you can support the public library with the Velvet Coffee Company Bookworm Blend Coffee, which is available in whole bean or ground, and you can order a Polar Camel water bottle. And there's vinyl Jesup Public Library stickers are now on sale in 2 different styles. So all of these support the Friends of the Library, which is a group that supports the library. They have a croquet set to check out, disc golf. Those are over in Parker Muncie Park, right? The disc golf thing? Okay. A digital camera that you could use, which would be kind of neat. A spike ball game. Non-book items include craft stamps, candy molds, cake pans, puzzles, games, STEM activity bags, cookie cutters, and lots more. And remember, there's always interlibrary loan. If they don't have it, they can get it for you. The Dolly Parton Imagination Library is going strong over there, and you can get a gift of books. Kids 0 through 5 living in the Jesup School District, you can get a book 1 a month until their 5th birthday. It's an amazing program. I've said before, my kids in Michigan were part of this, and it's a great program to get kids to read, and they look forward to getting those books every month. The sponsors for that are the Friends of the Public Library, Heartland Technology, Innovative Wealth Management, Jesup Paint and Auto Body, Jesup Chamber of Commerce, and the Jesup Public Library. So, and 1,000 books before kindergarten. You're your child's first teacher, and your home is where your child begins to learn. And so this is a program that encourages kids to read 1,000 books before they get to read or have read to them 1,000 books before kindergarten. They have prizes and lots of good things. The movie Champion is going to be on the 24th. Okay, it's Woody Harrelson coaches 10 actors that have learning disabilities, a basketball team. I have seen this movie, and the language is not appropriate for anyone too young. I will just tell you that. I don't know anybody that talks like that, but apparently they do in the movies. But the language is a little rough, in my opinion. It's PG-13, and all of that, I think, is for language. Just a warning to Jim. You don't want to get your you better watch that. But it is. I found it very interesting and in a nice movie, and the individuals they found to play the basketball people, they are really very good. And you can tell there's some ad-libbing going on there from these kids, and well, they're not kids, they're probably young adults, but very interesting story about the grumpy old man that finds out he has a heart of gold in there somewhere. So, okay.
All right. Well, thank you, Dale. Dale, I was thinking about the Farmer's Day always takes me back to my youth.
Your youth?
Yeah. When we have Mike Farrell in today, you will hear his Boston accent.
Yeah.
You may hear youth pronounced a little different
Yeah.
there.
No.
But I was thinking about a few things, Dale. One of many things I was thinking about was cartoons that I watched in my childhood.
Okay.
And I was thinking about who deserves or what characters deserve to be in the Cartoon Hall of Fame.
Okay.
Do you have two or three, Dale?
Well, I always liked Foghorn Leghorn and the little chicken hawk.
Yeah.
He was that combination. And I know when you watch cartoons with a big theater full of men, you have the cartoon before the movie, and you'd see it. And the Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote were awful big. People just loved those. That was probably the favorite, the one that got the most attention. Do you remember Snagglepuss? There was a cat, Snagglepuss, and
That was done by the same group that did the Bugs Bunny and
well, I don't think it was Warner Bros. I think it was Hanna-Barbera.
Oh,
it
what?
was, and I can't remember what show they were on. But also, I wrote down here. If you remember the Fractured Fairy Tales.
I don't remember that.
Okay, there was a whole 30-minute show, and it was Rocky and Bullwinkle show.
I remember that.
Okay, they had one of those segments called Fractured Fairy Tales, where they would tell a fairy tale like Little Red Riding Hood,
Yes, I do.
and
Yeah.
from their own point. And then they had a dog named Mr. Peabody that owned a boy, which I always thought was a neat concept because Mr. Peabody was very smart and he owned this boy, Sherman. And so those are some of my favorites. Just thinking real quick here, I like Bugs Bunny and Porky Pig. You didn't see Porky Pig so much, but I used to read Porky Pig comic books. But you never saw too many cartoons that had Porky
Right.
as the main character. But they used to have Porky Pig comic books that were really good, as I recall. So those are some of my favorites, just real quick.
Rocky and Bullwinkle and a lot of those were on NBC.
That was an adult show. I mean,
Yeah.
you had to know something to get the jokes.
Yep.
I mean, you had to have a little prior knowledge.
Yep.
So
I remember that. I enjoyed that as well. That was on later in the morning during my
okay.
childhood.
Well, I think when I first saw it, it was like an evening show. It was on the schedule,
Okay.
and then it later became like a Saturday morning staple or whatever.
Yeah,
But it was. They tried that with the Flintstones too. It was like at 6:30 on Saturday night, or it was a prime time kind of show.
Mm-hmm.
But those usually don't last. Prime time.
Although the Fox and TNT and those have brought back cartoon shows,
Yeah.
more adult cartoon shows,
Yeah.
late night stuff recently, and those names escape me. But
Yeah. No, when I was teaching elementary school, I used to watch the Saturday morning cartoons, and I would just tell my wife that it was. I'd be able to talk with my kids at school, see, so I had to know, and they were all watching them, so I had to keep up, and so that's how I got away with it. So it doesn't work anymore.
All right. Well, so you talk about, and a number of those are NBC now that I think about it.
Okay.
Mine are more CBS.
Okay.
And I don't know if it was because, Mom had the television program to CBS, or like you were close to Channel 7 in Hazleton.
Yeah.
My favorite ones included Donald Duck and Daffy. Was it Donald and Daffy Duck?
No, Donald Duck was with Mickey Mouse, and Daffy Duck was with Bugs Bunny. There were
It's
two. One was
Daffy.
Disney, and one was the Warner Brothers.
That's right. It's Daffy Duck.
Daffy Duck with the Bugs Bunny and
Yeah.
I forgot Elmer Fudd was always a favorite too. So
Yes.
actually, I had a lot of. I guess.
It did. And then one that drew me was a more thinking person cartoon, Johnny Quest.
Okay, see, I wasn't a big fan of that.
Yeah.
So.
Johnny Quest's father was a scientist and they traveled the world. And Johnny was always involved in deviance and terrorism,
Okay.
and he would be kidnapped or he would see things happen, and
Just like real life.
yeah. So Johnny Quest was a favorite of mine. I loved the Roadrunner, and Wile E.
Coyote, yep.
Coyote. I also really enjoyed show, and I'm trying to think here what his name was. I love Popeye and Olive Oil, and I love the bully in that show. Bluto.
Yes.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. That's on Sunday mornings on 7.2 on KWWO.
Oh, okay.
Before the superhero shows of Batman and Superman.
We are learning a lot about you tonight, Mr. Gillespie.
So here you go. So here's a question for you.
Okay.
Is Batman really a superhero?
Yeah.
Because he doesn't have superpowers.
Yes, and probably he's not.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
He's very vulnerable.
Sorry.
Yeah. I would think that he would qualify as a superhero.
Spoiler alert out there. If you're going to attack anyone, attack Dale Rueber.
Well, he's a hero.
He's a hero.
He just doesn't have any superpowers.
So then is Scooby-Doo a superhero?
Scooby-Doo just, how say, he blunders around till something happens, and oh, there it is. He doesn't really analytically think things through and come up with some clues and a positive track to go on, and eliminate suspects. He just blunders around. That's my opinion.
And then an off the list cartoon that I really liked is Jughead from the Archie
Comics.
Archie Comics.
I really liked Betty and Veronica as a young man. The way they drew those gals.
Control your hormones, Mr.
Oh
Rueber.
man. Oh.
Okay. So then another question I had is, what were the top 5 games you guys played outside, or back then we didn't have the electric games.
Yeah.
We played some board games in the wintertime, but when you would go outside, what were some top 5 games that you guys played?
Well, you want to eliminate sports because we played a lot of baseball.
Yeah, we did too.
Yeah. My house was right across, was in left center, right across the street, and so we played baseball over there. We played a lot of hide and seek. When we got a little older, we played a game called Ditch 'em. Did you ever play that? Where everybody's on bicycles, and one guy stays back, and everybody else takes off, and then the guy tries to catch you on on the bicycles. It's sort of like playing tag on bicycles, but everybody tried to get away from this one guy.
Okay.
It wasn't in a mean way; that was the game. But so we played Ditch 'em. I remember playing hopscotch actually in the dirt. Trying to think. Oh, there was lots of others. We played football a lot. It was a game called Kickle where you were 30 kids on one side and 30 kids on the other, and you would try to get the ball over the end line, and you would just throw the ball. If they caught it, they could take 5 steps and then throw the ball back or kick it. And if you didn't catch it, you had to throw it from where you got it. And so you were always scrambling to be the one to catch the ball. Mm-hmm. And my favorite memory is at the beginning of 4th grade, first time we were playing, I caught the ball. I took my 5 steps, and then I threw it over everybody's head. And that's the first time they realized that I could throw a ball that far. See, and the first time I realized it, but just everything went well. And so somehow over the summer, my arm had grown much stronger, or whatever. But I felt really, really good about one of those feelings like, wow, that's pretty good. So
Life-changing event.
it is really, because then you get respect. See,
Mm-hmm.
when you get the ball and they crowd in close, that's not respect. That makes you. But so anyway, I threw it away. So I don't know, is that 5 or not? But we used to be outside a lot. Actually, remember we played mumbly peg with the pocket knife. Where you try to get it off your nose, off your knee, to have it stick. If there were just 2 of you, you could play that.
Those are neat. I played. Obviously, we played hide and seek in our neighborhood when we were young.
Yeah. Well, actually, we played quite even into our teens. I think we would play.
Mm-hmm. We played every Saturday night. We would go over to Sue Billmeyer's house, and the neighborhood would meet about just before dark, because we just get the game started and our parents would start calling us. We would play kick the can.
Okay, I never played that, but I've heard of that game, but we never played that. So.
It was like there was somebody guarding the can, and you had to kick the can over away from the guard of the can
Yeah.
to win the game. Obviously, we played types of tag, one-legged tag. We played rock, paper, scissors. And the favorite game of the neighborhood was wiffle ball.
Oh, yeah. That was probably ours too. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Did you use a wooden bat?
Sometimes.
Okay, we used a wooden bat, and there was a guy who could saw it in half, and then he would tape it up. So you had really two bats out of one, but use that half bat to hit the wiffle ball. And we used the little golf balls, the little peachy balls,
really?
practice golf balls. Two could play because you hit it so far it's a single and so far it's a double. Did you do that way and everything? And we get one out, I think, is all we got.
Right.
But we played that an awful lot.
Yeah.
That was really, really big. And another thing I forgot, we played ice hockey at Fontana in the wintertime. We get on there, we get we crush a can for the puck, and we get some tree branches to use for the sticks.
Yeah.
And I don't know what we had for the goal, and play ice hockey. And I remember there'd be Amish kids down there sometimes that would skate, and we'd play hockey against them. And I know they're supposed to be pacifists, but they were very wicked with those sticks.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were rough, and they, hit for the ankles, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, kids are kids. It was a lot, but so it was dangerous fun, but it was fun. So, I remember that.
Okay.
But wiffle ball, yeah. Gee, I used to love to play that.
Yeah.
I used to play that hours and hours. And I was home on leave, and I went to visit my good friend's house, and he was in the Air Force in Florida or whatever. And I was talking with his mom, and she said, we used to worry about the backyard, all the bare spots where first, second, third, and home. And we give anything now to have that grass back there because there's no kids coming over there anymore because we're all grown and gone.
Right.
And so I always remember that when my own kids were messing something up. I said, well, it'll grow back someday. Minnie Wingert, great lady. So,
All right. Well, Dale, how'd Farmers Day go this year? Tell us about Farmers Day.
well, we don't have the money lined up yet, and that's always the biggest indicator. But Friday we had the rain, and so we felt it really cut down on our numbers and this sort of thing. But Saturday, the crowd was down there from during the parade and then right after the parade. And in the evening, the beer garden, and we always talk about the beer garden because that's where we get our money from to do all this stuff, was full to overflowing. And so we have high hopes. The astronaut he came in from Connecticut, and we got a call on Friday. They were stuck in the airport in Chicago, and maybe we couldn't make it and this sort of thing. But he did make it, and so he gave a nice little talk downtown. And then I heard him talking over we had a little tent by Miller Vogel where the ambassadors were, and he was in there, and just a very nice man, and would answer questions and autograph pictures and give it to the kids and this sort of thing. So was a very nice man. We thought a lot of kids came down to play with the inflatables we have on Thursday. We thought that was a good thing for us, and a lot of kids rode on the carnival. So I don't know. We feel pretty positive about it, and we're this close to just a little over a half inch to getting a date for next year already. As far as because we need dates so we can start signing up people to come.
Yep.
But and the date revolves around the carnival, and so Alan's working really hard with the carnival people to get them to commit to some. The carnival we get is one of the finest around. If you go to other celebrations, they don't have near the carnival that we do. It's just a fantastic carnival, and so we're very lucky to get them. And so we're hoping. The last I knew, we had another carnival lined up. We had 2 dates that they were debating, and then all at once Alan said, well, he's talking to this guy, the Evans show that we don't normally get, and just saying, hey, what day could you possibly come? What dates do you have? And we will move to meet you because he thinks that carnival is so good. And so, again, haven't heard anything yet. But when we get all our money in and everything, then we'll have an idea because we spent a lot of money this year. And that I think more than we usually do, and much more than we usually do, actually. And so see how that goes. We get all the accounts paid and this sort of thing, and our bills paid, and see where we stand, and then we'll go from there. But I'm very positive about it myself. I thought that we had a lot of people, and so some good things. 16 people found moon rocks in that big pile of sand and got a free dish of ice cream. So, so I don't know. Just was interesting. I thought the whole NASA thing I thought was a good idea. So now all we do is need an idea for next year. See, so,
there you go.
yeah,
There you go. Well, thank you.
yeah.
On the calendar events for the Steve Brown Arts Center, this Saturday we will have a booth at Independence Farmers Market from 8 till 12. And then on the 29th of July is Littleton Free Watermelon
It's coming
Day.
up, isn't it?
It
It's
is. It is. I've been double checking with the artists and the musicians. We are hopefully. I stopped at a watermelon place down in Mount Pleasant. I hope I can get them a little closer in Mount Pleasant. But they've been getting their watermelon from Illinois already.
Oh, okay.
So the Independence FFA has promised us watermelon, but things weren't growing well early.
No,
Dale,
that's true.
So,
Yep.
so we will see. Hopefully they do. Otherwise, we will make arrangements elsewhere.
Yeah.
There's a lot of watermelon.
But that just
out
seemed a
there.
little early to me that watermelon would be ready around here in July. But
Yeah.
You never know how things are going to go.
The
What's about the Youth Talent Show? What is that all about?
The Youth Talent Show, we did this last year, and it's August 17th. It's the Thursday before school starts.
Okay.
And it is kids K through 12, and they perform in the pavilion in the park.
Yeah.
And we had 30 acts last year.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah. And so we are looking forward to having at least half those this year. And I think we will have that. But it's during lunch in the park.
Yeah.
So we had 125 people, and up to this point, that's been our largest event. It's 125 people.
Yeah.
For grant purposes, we keep track of how many people we have at
Sure.
each event and
Yeah.
stuff. And so that was well attended.
And how do they register for this? All online?
Very good. They can register. Kelly will have something. Kelly C. Haas at Cowork 591 will have something on her Facebook page. The Steve Brown Arts Center will have something on our Facebook page, and Annette Zook
Okay.
will have something on her Facebook
Okay.
page. So it works out real well. And Kelly is a great recruiter when it comes to that.
Yeah. Well, that's great.
So that is August 17th, and with all the events we have going on, Dale, that seems like a lifetime away to me right now.
Yes, it does.
But thanks for asking. Thank
Sure.
you for asking. We are doing real well with StoryCorps. If you get a chance, go to the StoryCorps app and type in Buchanan County, Iowa, and that will take you to a number of different interviews that were done by the Steve Brown Arts Center.
Okay.
So Buchanan County, Iowa, on the StoryCorps or their website,
Okay.
and you can find that.
Okay.
So there's some neat interviews.
And you have any idea about how many you've done, or
We've probably done 15.
50? Okay.
15, not
Yeah,
50,
yeah.
15.
Okay.
Some people, will sit and talk, and they'll just tell brilliant stories. Then I'll say, I'll say, you would do a wonderful StoryCorps. I can't do that online.
Yeah.
And they just shut up and
Yeah.
run away from me, Dale.
Yeah.
And I have that effect. I run a lot of people away. But we're still doing that till the end of the summer.
Okay.
As always, the Littleton Free Watermelon Day is sponsored by the Littleton Lounge, Reyes Concrete, Littleton Chatham Historical Society, Jacobson's Fabrication Repair, Dream Chaser Acres, Boyd's Food Truck, Laces, Jesup Lions Club, Independence High School FFA, Thomas James, Totally Rolled Ice Cream, Northeast Iowa, Even Events and Rentals, Derek's Repair Shop, and the Independence Bulletin Journal. We will always take more sponsorship, even up to and afterwards as well. Dale, there's a game out there that's being played called Poker 2 Individual.
I'm sorry, Poker 2.
Poker 2 as a TWO
Okay.
individuals.
Okay.
So what you have to do is you have to say two people you'd like to be, and they have to be alive, and why, and whoever has the best two is the winner.
Okay.
And so how it goes is each person chooses one. We'll spin the pen to see who goes first. It's you, Dale. You get to go first.
Okay.
So name one person in this world you would like to be.
We have a lot of silence to come.
Let me give you an example.
Yeah, that was
And this. Everybody, a lot of people say they'd love to be Tom Brady, the former quarterback of the New England Patriots.
Yeah.
But for his success in the Super Bowl, he dated a supermodel and married a supermodel.
Yeah.
He is a millionaire. He's got a contract with Fox Television of like $28 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
But then the argument against him is he was pounded for 25 years as a quarterback in the backfield. He went through a terrible divorce with his wife. Most recently, he lost a $30 million lawsuit dealing with stock. And so, there's always things that are for and against people. So when I say people, Dale, you want to be able to respond against them.
I see.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, because having a lot of money is not always a good thing. is
No. So would you like me to start?
it? Why don't you?
All right. So
I'm sorry. I'm really not having any luck here.
That's
Go ahead.
okay. So I would say Barack Obama.
Okay.
And here's the reason why. He's no longer. He was one of the most powerful people in the world, in the free world, for a long time. He changed the world in many ways, including healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
He now has many different programs that he's involved with and helps the world, and yet he enjoys great respect by many people and doesn't open his mouth and look poorly in front of a lot of people.
Yeah.
As a former president.
Mm-hmm.
So I would argue Barack Obama.
Okay. Well, the one thing with Barack Obama is the fact that he will need Secret Service protection for the rest of his life, because there are a lot of people that don't like him, what he stands for, as far as being the first black president, is alone enough to irritate a lot of people. And so he will need that Secret Service protection the rest of his life, and he also, I think, will have to worry about his children the rest of his life, as far as what his fame will do to them. Will it allow them to lead a fairly normal life? And I think there's a possibility, because you see, like, the one Bush girl is on NBC on the Today Show a lot, and she appears to be leading just a regular life and has a job and has a husband and children, that sort of thing. But you have to wonder about that sort of thing. And also, his wife, has those big arms, and so if she gets mad at him, that's it for little Barack. He might get stuffed in a pickle jar or something by her. So yeah, you have to watch all that. But yeah, but I think I'm not supposed to play the game this way. The positives outweigh the negatives, but there are negatives to being famous and for doing a lot of neat things and having everybody recognize you.
Okay.
And the ability just to walk into a cafe and have a cup of coffee and a donut and talk to a few people is gone. I mean, that's forever gone. And I'm not sure I would care for that myself.
All right. So then you need to respond with a person.
With a person, okay. And you think about a famous person, right? So
Doesn't have to be famous.
yeah, but I think a man like Tom Hanks has a lot of positives. Very much respected as an actor. Won awards for that. Has done quality work his whole life for the most part. Takes roles that have some meaning to other people and are not just fluff for the most part. A family man, wife and kids, same wife, many, many years, and well respected for that, and can go just about anywhere and find people who admire his work and would be glad to talk to him about it or to tell him how wonderful he is if he needs that sort of thing. But he appears to be just a regular guy that happens to be a movie star. And I think that's what, not all of them try for that. A lot of them want to be a movie star, but not a regular guy. They want to be, well, clear to the top. They want everybody to admire them. They want people fawning all over them. And then some of them even hire people to follow around and say, yes, you're doing great, and this sort of thing. And I don't think he's that kind of person. I think he's very much content with who he is. And just to me, he just seemed to be like a regular guy that happens to be a movie star.
Okay, so here would be my response against Tom Hanks. And that is a very good one. You caught me off guard a little bit, Mr. Rueber.
Okay.
But I talked to a doctor about Tom Hanks.
Okay.
And Tom Hanks developed in his acting, because of his acting career and the roles that he played, he developed type 2 diabetes because of the roles he played.
How does that happen?
Well, 2 roles in particular. The first role, remember Castaway?
Yeah.
Remember he was lost on that island for
Several years.
Several years. Yeah. Well, he I forget how many pounds he lost in that.
Okay.
In that role, but it was a lot,
Yeah.
and that that was the first role.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't the first role.
No.
You go back, you remember in the Forrest Gump movie where Forrest ran across the country
Mm-hmm.
for like 2.5 years. Well, because he ran so much in that film, he lost pounds and pounds and pounds. So during his acting career, his weight would go up and then it would go down and up and then down and up and down. And because of that, he developed, and it may not be type 2 diabetes, but he developed a type of diabetes because of that. So there are things that come with being an actor like that, I think, that we don't see.
No, I'm sure that's true.
Yeah.
And especially if you really want to do it right.
Right. Okay. Now, forgive me here as I say this. I can't remember the Japanese baseball player's name that plays for the Angels.
Yeah, I can't either, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Leads the league in pitching and strikeouts, or top 4.
Uh-huh.
And is one of the best hitters in the league as well. He's going to overshadow A-Rod's contract that came multiple years ago by so much next year. The Angels face an issue where they're going to have to trade him. Mm-hmm. But he is, without a doubt, the best baseball player to ever play. People want to argue Babe Ruth, but Babe Ruth only pitched the first couple of years in his career, I believe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I believe it's a Otani or something like that.
I would know it if I heard it, but I don't.
And so I would like to be him. The skills that he has. He struck out his teammate in the World Baseball Championships. The last out. I mean, talk about a remarkable scene for baseball.
Yeah.
So he struck out Trout. So I would choose him as my second person.
Well, I don't. He doesn't speak English, of course. Yeah, most of the world speaks English, and he doesn't. So it's going to be hard for him to get along in this world. See, I'm really reaching here, aren't I? I think I'd like to be him too, because he is playing baseball, which I dearly love to do, and doing it very, very well. And the only problem you have with him, you're forecasting all these things, but he's one pulled muscle or blister on his finger from not being able to pitch anymore. And that same thing with hitting. You know, sometimes it goes away. The pitch, you know, everybody catches up with you, and so they're forecasting these things, but we'll know more in 20 years than we know now. And so I don't say he's the flash in the pan, but he's got a long ways to go yet before he can certifiably be the greatest player that ever played. And so he has some years yet. To me, it'd be exciting years, right? To try and so I think it'd be better if you I like it where you build instead of boom, here you are. You know, then how do you if you maintain that, are you meeting expectations? If you don't get better, are you a bum? Or if you fall down a little bit, are you a bum because you can't do what you did when you were 20 years old? I don't know, but it's very unfair the way they judge people.
Yeah.
But no, I agree with you on that. But I would hesitate to give him all these accolades until more time has gone by.
He's going to get the money, though.
Oh yeah, he's going to get the money, and if that's how you judge it, and that's how they do judge it. You know, they look at those contracts, and and I can't remember who the pitcher was, but when he contract came, he said, "Well, I need $1 more than so and so got, or I'm not signing." You know, he wanted to be the highest paid pitcher in the country, and so
He's going to get. They're figuring he's going to get $80 million a year next year.
Yeah. So, what's he going to do with it?
I'm sure he'll find a way to spend.
He'll buy one of those mansions in Los Angeles that slide down into the gully. So.
There you go.
Okay.
So Dale, who's your
I'll give you one
second
more.
person?
Okay, Samantha Guthrie.
Oh, okay.
NBC News does the Today Show, and it looks like NBC has been really grooming her for big things in her career, and she pretty much does the Today Show, and if they have a big story, they send her. If they have the election night coverage, she's there. If they have the Olympics in Paris, she's going to be there. And so it seems like they have really decided that this girl has what it takes to be an all-star in the news business. And I don't know anything about her, but she appears to be a very nice person. And when she asks questions, she can be tough. She doesn't back down from anybody. She'll ask the tough question, and she appears to be very smart. First in her class in some college she went to. I don't know what kind of degree. I really don't know anything about her. But she just, watching her on television most mornings for a while, she just appears to me to be the kind of person that is going to be successful and is a nice person. Because she's a nice person, people relate to her and like her. And so she would be a good person to be, I think.
Yes. All right. So here would be my argument against her. And please, females, don't take me as being misogynist on this. But for some reason, our world attacks females when they get to higher powers, when they get to a position of strength like that. And as she gets stronger, and one woman that has avoided this is Oprah Winfrey. Oprah has stayed strong as she's built a media empire. But it's tougher for women to become a leader like she is becoming, and there's no doubt she's springboarding.
On the fast track, don't you? Yeah, I really do. So.
But it's tougher for women. I hope she succeeds.
Yeah.
All right, so that is called Poker to Individuals is what it's called. Play that with your friends at home. Okay. If you'd like to donate to the Steve Brown Arts Center or have an idea for an event, go to the SteveBrownArtsCenter.org and follow the link. If you have news or would like to sponsor us, email us at jim@SteveBrownArtsCenter.org or call 319-290-0241 and leave a message. I'm Jim Gillespie. Thanks to co-host Dale Rueber, our producers Blake Tempus and Kelly C. Haas at Cowork 591 Studios. Thanks to the audience for bringing these stray dogs into your day. Remember, each day is about little victories.